Okay, I think we're live. Yeah, should be live.
Hello,
That's my we're live dance.
we're live.
Yep. Okay. So who wants to start? What do we think? Caleb, what
Call.
were your thoughts? This is a reread for you, right?
Yeah, it's a reread, and I am realizing how much I fucking missed just completely out the
Yeah.
gate. Reading it this time, I realized that because Erickson doesn't really do a lot of exposition, like I got a lot more from just reading very slowly. It took me all month to read this book, but the more I kind of like slowed down and soaked in the prose and soaked in exactly what he was saying, the easier it was to follow and the more I appreciated it. And this time I also just found how funny the book is.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So first time I liked it. This time I love it. So it's probably one of my favorite reads of the year.
Hmm. Yeah, same for me. What rating did you give? Did you rate it? Did you rate it or no?
I'd probably give it in the context of like a 5 out of 5 isn't perfect. It just means I love it. It'd be a 5 out of 5. So I don't like doing half ratings.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Chris?
Yeah, same with Colin. This was a reread for me as well. I did read it many years ago when it first came out, probably publication dates, so early 2000s. Um, Definitely a different experience. Again, very similar, Colin. The first time I think I was one of those people who were confused
Mhm.
with what was going on and trying to keep track of everybody. This time, definitely a much better experience. It's amazing how much I forgot. So, and this time around, it felt like a brand new read for me. The It was easier to remember what was going on, like who was where, and what was going on. So I was able to establish and be able to separate the different groups we had going on in this book. So yeah, a much better experience for me as well. um, I'm okay with the half star, so it is a high 4.5 out of 5 if I did a star rating system. um, I I had a good time with this book. There was a few things that, it was a good starting point for me, and definitely excited for the continuation of the series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt the same. I give it a 4.5 as well. I felt, yeah, it was easy to get immersed in it, even though, there's a lot of things. I mean, there's some things you're kind of questioning, like, how does that happen or this and that, some context. But it was super enjoyable. I mean, every aspect of this story, the world building, even his prose, which surprised me like immensely, the characters, it was all just so well done that yeah, I couldn't stop reading. So, and I get how people are like, yeah, I don't know what's going on, but I can't stop reading. So,
There's sort of a, I don't want to say eye candy because you're not. I mean, you're reading these words, and you're always looking to see what's going to happen in the next chapter. Everything seems very unpredictable, almost as if because they have these, when we get into characters, when they have the gods coming down and interacting a little bit with these characters, I feel like you always have this unexpectedness going into each chapter, what's going to happen in this chapter, and it kept me going forward in a book. And it's been a long time since, usually even if a book's good, I can still put it down. This one was really kind of hard for me to put down.
yeah, yeah, I know what you mean by the gods. Like, yeah, there was a lot of intervention, and it's cool how the gods were done here. They seemed pretty vulnerable, which is not something you get a lot in the pantheon of a series. So that was nice. I like that.
I think it was good because it gave some restriction to how the gods act in in the mortal world. Like they do have some sort of limitations a little bit, to me at least. Um, they still are all powerful and they can manipulate mortals, but they still had some sort of limitation or some sort of guidelines or rules. So it wasn't like, always the gods interfering with everything that was going on in the series. So I thought it was a great way to moderate that, the power of the gods, but still have some limitations.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Got Chris Hard is here. Black and Blue Collar. What's up, Dan? Rogier is here. What's up? Two veterans. That's right. Two veterans here. Let's see. It was really good, but a bit difficult to read. Grimdark is my fantasy subgenre. I'm read urban, historical fantasy, and magical realism. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Well, at least, yeah, it was really good, for sure. That's good since Grimdark isn't your main subgenre.
And I feel like for a Grimdark book, other than the fact that like everyone is like vaguely terrible, it doesn't really have a lot of like these super Grimdark elements. Like people get disintegrated and people die, but I feel like even like the first law is like way more grotesque and cruel in the way it handles people. I feel like this book has way more of just like a kind of like a black metal fantasy vibe, where like it's dark aesthetically, but it's mostly just wild.
Yeah, I like that. I like that black metal reference. I'm glad there's someone here who knows what black metal is.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely wartime in this book, so there is going to be, it's going to have that darkness, and I like that we involve so many characters in this, and again, when we get to character, that was just a very strong thing to me. It's like you're not just following one or two people, you're following groups of people in each of these chapters, which I think is a really good touch.
I was just listening to some black metal earlier, and yeah, I see what you mean by the tone of, yeah, it works for sure. Well, this is not gratuitous, and that's what makes it not grimdark. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much exactly it. That being said, the violence is amazing. The Siege of Pale, basically like the last 70 pages of the book, all just wild. I loved how I feel like the book kind of has this 0 to 60 mentality when it comes to action. I'm like, okay, right now we're just focusing on characters and we're building all this stuff up, and then the violence just ramps up immediately.
Yeah, it is unpredictable in that sense. How long did it take you to realize that Perrin is your man? Okay, I'll go first. I have a pretty hot take here, I think. So, I like Perrin. I like Perrin a lot. Like when we see him at the beginning, right from the beginning, he's he's very admirable. The fact that he's like this noble and he wants to become a soldier, and he kind of has like a good morals and stuff like that, which was nice, and you see that throughout as his character builds. But unfortunately, I didn't find him too interesting. There were a lot of other characters I would have rather read, but I do find him really admirable. Like when there were Perrin scenes, I was finding that. Oh, here, yeah, Colin.
Yeah, there's Colin.
There Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. I was using my webcam on my computer and my webcam mic. Nothing is working. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
Yeah, we
just in
can't
time.
really figure that out. Mic feedback issues. You know what? It might be mine. Let me see. I'll try taking this out. Nope. You guys hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I don't think it's mine. I tried to take it away, see what's going on, but
well, I think
I don't know.
You were messing with something, and it definitely affected the quality of it.
When I took it out?
I don't know if it was when you're taking out, but whenever you were messing with something that it went way up and then went back down.
Oh. I don't know. I unplugged it and then plugged it back in, but it seemed to get worse when I unplugged it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll deal with it for now.
Yeah. We're just getting used to it, guys.
Yeah. What was I saying here? Oh yeah. So Colin, we were talking about Perrin. I thought I had a pretty hot take here because I didn't find Perrin too interesting. Like when we were reading about him, there were other characters I would have rather read about, but from the get-go, I did find him very admirable, and he's like a character that you can't help rooting for. Like every time you're reading about him, you can't help rooting for Perrin. So he's cool. Like I like his morals, his character, but I just didn't find him too interesting. That's my take. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I don't know. The way I kind of felt about Perrin was like that was kind of what he was supposed to be. Like, there's so many crazy characters. Like everybody's got some stuff going on, and then we get Perrin. Like Perrin in the very beginning, he's just a kid in the prologue, right? Like he's just like a young boy.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I just want to be a soldier. That's it. And so I feel like he kind of all he's trying to do is just be a soldier, and then he gets like thrown into these ridiculous scenarios because of just the way that the Empire is like, I don't know, like he gets killed. Like I don't know. Like I enjoyed reading Perrin, but there were certainly like other characters that I found way more interesting. But like coming back to Perrin was like a very like grounding kind of sensation for me in a way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and that was super surprising when he got killed. I was like, what? It's crazy. Oh, it came back. It was gone for a bit, and then it came back. Oh,
I think might be me then, because I went on mute. So give me a second here. Let me.
It sounds way better now. I think the mic might be too close to your speakers.
You know what? Yeah, I think it was close to my speaker.
There we go.
All right.
Yeah.
Better? All right.
That's way more. Yes. That's way more manageable.
Yes.
I was the culprit.
Hey,
all right.
Thank you everybody for bearing with us. I'm literally like bare bones, just webcam mic and webcam.
Yeah.
So we'll figure it out.
Dan, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah, I was the same way with Perrin. I think he started off as sort of like that, almost like that typical fantasy character kind of feel, you know, that plain, I use this term a lot, vanilla, you know, kind of flavor of a character. And I wasn't really too investigated. I thought he was sort of supposed to be, if we had to pick a good person in this book, it would have been Perrin. But yeah, I didn't really care for his chapters as well. I think he did become more interesting after he died. And, you know, he continued on in that whole new manner. So that was just kind of my quick take. That wasn't, you know, just to add to this, but.
Yeah, I very much had similar thoughts. Perrin is a goody two-shoes. And I really just enjoyed watching. I enjoyed the Perrin chapters, but mostly because I liked watching him get shat on half the book until he kind of just decides to fight against the larger forces trying to control him. But yeah, he's not my least favorite character in the book, or my least favorite perspective, but he wasn't my favorite. For those of us who aren't familiar with what I like in fiction, I really latch on to toxic, horrible characters, which I probably need to go to therapy for. But
yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
chosen one trope.
It's kind of how I saw him too.
Yes, yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Who was everyone's favorite characters?
Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it.
Colin, before you got on, do you want to share your just overall? I mean, you just put out a review, but do you want to share your overall, just overall experience with?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, this is the series that I feel like, you know, I'm not unique, and I've been putting it off. Now I'm really glad I've been putting it off, because, you know, we've got this read along and can discuss it, and I feel like it, you know, with the discussions I'm doing with Ben for the Realm of the Elderlings, it's really enhancing my overall experience. But I kind of knew the tone and general things about the series going into it, so I wasn't quite as daunted by attacking it. Because, like I said in my review, like, there's tons of resources if you want them. Some people don't even like to use them; they just are along for the ride. And that was kind of me. Like, maybe the first 100 pages of Gardens of the Moon, I was flipping to the maps and flipping to the glossary and flipping to the dramatis personae. And then, like, one minute I was just like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going for it. Like, I'm just gonna read. And like, when I finally allowed myself to just kind of be in the story, I really honestly felt that Erickson deliberately gave us what we needed. If you're reading carefully, like, I didn't skim this book. I actually read it immersively the entire time. Like, I read it alongside the audio, and that helped me a lot, I think, to just kind of focus on it while I was reading. And I understood going into it that it was going to be different than other fantasy series that I've read, so I didn't expect anything, which I think helped me a lot. Like, one of my favorite parts about this, honestly, was just like, there isn't a good guy or bad guy we're following. Like, we're literally just getting all of the information from all sides, and like people from all sides and gods from all sides, and it's just like an overview. It's like a bird's eye view, and Erickson's just like, here's everything. Here's everything that's happening right now in this world.
Yeah.
Do what you will with this information. And like, I really respected that, because like, I've never read a book quite like that before.
Yeah. That's fair.
One of the things I like and I look for in fantasy that I don't see too often is when someone calls their, fantasy epic fantasy. You want that epic grand scale of things. But oftentimes when I read those, you're only still following like one or two characters. You're not finding out what's going on in the world. And I think Erickson does that. He gets everyone involved. So even though there are maybe like 4 or 5 main POVs, you get a perspective of almost every character they're also interacting with. So you're getting this global scale epic, look at what's going on in this world, even if they only have like a paragraph or two. I like that. I like to see more of that. As you guys know, I have read, The Wheel of Time back in the day, and there's a lot of characters, and it makes sense because this is an epic sort of fantasy, and people complain that there's all these like subplots and sub characters that they get lost in, but it's a global scale event happening in these books. So I feel like you need that sometimes, and I like that Erickson handles these characters really well. When I read it the first time, yeah, I maybe was getting what character was in what group mixed up a little bit, but this second time around, I understood. I knew where everybody was at every given time, and I like that. I appreciate the epic scale of this book.
Yeah, I'm
And
thinking
Colin-
for sure this could benefit from a reread, but I'm surprised that he's able to like include this huge plot and then still have decent character work and like really good prose, and like all this stuff is just, it's really good. And that's why, yeah, I had to give it a 4.5. The only thing, and coming back to Perrin here, when he was freeing the 2 hounds of Shadow from Jagnapur and battling Finesse, that was the first. I think that was the first section where I had to look up what just happened, because that was the first confusing part for me. I think when he got into Dragnapur and freed the hounds, I'm like, what's the deal with this carriage and stuff? I don't know. What was your guys' take on that?
The first time I read it, it was very confusing to me. But again, the second time I read it slower, and I appreciated it a lot more. I think Perrin's kind of encounter in Dragnapur is kind of the turning point for him. because he kind of goes from just being at everyone's whims and being everyone's little bitch boy, basically, just being like, go here, go do this, go do that, to like trying to fight those forces. He's fighting like impossible odds of like, the hounds dealing with Opon and the inescapable hell of Dragnipur. And he handles all three. So I thought it was really cool. It's really metal and awesome. And then also, I think it was a good character development moment for him.
I think that's part of the fact maybe why I loved it so much, because I'm a metalhead.
I know. I'm going to keep saying that a lot because I think it's perfect.
Yeah.
Colin, going back to something that you said, and touching on why I really enjoy this book, coming off of my last fantasy book I read, which was The Final Empire, I feel like Gardens of the Moon is the antithesis of that book. Because whereas I don't mean to shut on it, I feel like Mistborn, that's great, but it wasn't for me. Because Brandon Sanderson wants to take all the time to make sure you sit down and you have your little lessons about how the magic works and how this part of magic interacts with this part of magic and all the variances in it. Erickson, very much, when you're reading Erickson, you're like, what the hell is going on? And he's like, hey, why don't you shut the hell up and watch this wizard battle? There is a much more of a suspended disbelief of just shut up and ride while you're reading the book that I really love.
There you go.
Yeah, I as far as the Perrin scene in Dragnipur, like that was probably like the epitome of this feeling for me, but there was so many like scenes throughout this book where I was just like, how can somebody just come up with this? Like, this is insane. Like, Animander Rake, first of all, just in general, is like, what? Like, this dude is like, how? Like, I can just imagine Erickson, like, the steps of coming up with the character of Animander Rake, the race of like the Tista or Teist Andy, whatever they are. Like, every time he came up with something else, it was probably just like, yes, this is sweet. Yes,
Yes,
this is sweet.
Take all the
And
coolest elements and
it's so cool. And then like, so on top of like everything just being freaking awesome, then we figure out that Dragnipur just like drags all of its victims into this eternal hell where they're all just like commiserating together. And like the freaking guy that Perrin like sees, he's just like, oh hey man, what's up? Like, I've been here forever. Like, this sword pulled me and I'm just down here dragging chains. Like, what's going on with you? Aaron's like, what is going on here? And then I loved how he set the one face of Opon up and kind of just messed with him, because like Opon's messing with everybody this whole book. And the people that like know about Opon and that know you know, that certain people are affected by Opon, they're just like, be careful. And everyone seems to be like, when it feels like your luck has run out, ditch whatever it is, like ditch the sword, or you know, there's people telling Crocus to like ditch the coin. Like, when your luck runs out, ditch the coin, because there's a whole other side, pun intended, to this whole thing. Like, everything's been going great for you now, aside from getting killed if you're Perrin, but still. That whole scene, like, there was just some trippy moments in this book where I was just like amazed that this all came from somebody's mind.
I love that last scene with the coin just being like, you know, toss it, you know, in the ocean. I thought that was pretty, just, you know, screw you, you know, Opon, you know, kind of thing.
There you go, great. Perfect. We don't have to worry.
So, what was everyone's favorite characters or arcs in the book?
I mean, for me, it was Animander Rake, hands down. Like,
I mean,
the coolest.
It could be anyone else. Like, he just got cooler
right?
the more the book went. First, badass name, amazing. Then he has evil sword that steals people's souls, very awesome. All the way up to being a fucking dragon. What?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that part.
Yeah. Huge dragon.
Yeah.
When I read that, when he turned into a huge dragon, I'm like, come on, no, really? You got this too? Wow.
Yeah, I forgot that the first time I read it.
I had a feeling going into this that this was just going to be the Animander Rig hour.
I will throw out Krupa though. I've enjoyed every one of his chapters. Caleb, you were talking about humor. Obviously, that's I think where a big part of the humor came from was anytime Krupa was in a scene, and just his haphazard and just like always hungry and just making being obnoxious in a sort of way, but he always just cracked me up. But I think there was a nice sober scene that I really enjoyed, and I think it was one of his first, and he's at that crossroads, and it's an inn, and he's talking to like these beggars about like giving them these gifts, the gifts of virtue, the gifts of doubt, and I thought that was just a really interesting scene with Krupa, and it definitely gives you that essence that they're like Quick Band, which I'm sure we'll get into. There's more to Krupa than meets the eye here, and but he was just always, I think the most, like I was tabbing some things I wanted to remember in the book, and I think most of them came from Krupa's chapters. He is just this interesting thing, and Erickson was giving these little tidbits that he knows things, he knows what's a little more than what's going on. He has a interesting relationship with one of the elder gods, Kroll, I think, where they're talking about Kroll's talking about how gods fall and it's because of mortals, and I just those interactions I thought were pretty cool. But he gave us, of course, a lot of laughs too, which really eases a lot of this tension that we get, from a book about war and all that.
Yeah.
I will pull. I'm not going to go as far as to say that this is my favorite character, but I will say that one of my favorite arcs to follow was Crocus. I loved all of the scenes. Like, okay, so probably like my favorite, the scene that like I knew, because I was already enjoying this whole book, but when we finally get to Darujistan, and we just immediately are like put right in this. It felt like a movie scene. The assassins on the roof fighting each other, and everything like with Crocus, just like I could picture it all in my head. Like, oh, just this goofy dude like drops the coin and it saves his life, and then all these people around him start to figure out that he has the coin, but he has no idea why these things are happening to him, and he's just like this. Like Kruppa is like deliberately aloof, I feel like, and like trying to make people think that he is actually what Crocus is like. Like Crocus is just this doofus that like falls in love with some noble that he has no chance of getting, and like truly believes he's gonna like go up to Chalice and like present himself and like try to win her like in the right way. And then his uncle's even like, let's train you into learning about being a noble. And like I just loved following that group of characters story arc throughout this whole thing, because they were always up to something. Like the whole like seedy underground part of Darujistan was super interesting to me.
Yeah, I like Darujistan too. I like Pale a lot too, but they were both good. I like them.
Yeah,
the concept of Darujistan is sweet. Like this city just built on like natural like gas that is just blue, and there's, I forget what the people are called. What are the people called that go around and, is it like the white faces or something? The gray faces? I can't remember. The guys that are just like responsible for going around and like when it's nighttime lighting the blue flames. Like I was just picturing this sweet like silhouetted city with like blue flames all through it, and I was like, this looks so cool in my head.
Yeah. No, I like Darujistan. Well, I like Pale a lot because I think that's where we first saw Animander Rake, right? He was on Moonspawn and like
He was on Moonspawn, yeah.
Battling. That was cool. But I like Darujistan because it seems a little more, I think we were talking about this, it seems a little more Middle Eastern vibes, like with the assassins and stuff. And it just, Yeah, it felt like it had that kind of aura, like that deathly kind of anxiety-filled aura. Like, there's thieves and assassins running across the roofs at night. So I like that.
Back to what Ben says up there, Genghis Khan. He, talking about Crocus and Fiddler and all that. And just to add on to a little bit what Colin said, hitting those extra characters like Fiddler, who didn't really have he didn't have a large POV stance, but he has a really important speech about talking about his friends. We watch our friends die, but we continue on. We build. You know, we grow from those experiences, and we come together as a group. In the end, I think it's something along those lines, and again, it's just those like nice tidbits that enrich these like side characters, because Fiddler's not really a major character. He's in there, but he's not like major point of view, and just having these extra parts that I think are just really cool, that Erickson handles really well.
Yeah, he has a great way of like very subtly giving everyone a lot of characterization. Because even the other characters like Hedge, we only see Mallet a few times, but I feel like just in the way they speak, like they have very distinct characterizations, which I think is cool. One of my favorite characters, unfortunately, had her exodus halfway through the book, and that was Tattersail. I love Tattersail. One, how does Erickson come up with such cool fucking names for everyone? Because I love the name Tattersail. I also just love her kind of smug attitude. And then she goes out like a badass. And then going into that, one of my favorite scenes in the whole book is Kroop's dream, where she's like being reincarnated as like a messiah for the Reeve people. Incredible. What?
Yeah, seems like that's because from what I understand, that's super powerful stuff. Like soul shifting, is it called?
Soul
So
taking. Yeah,
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
so that was cool. Yeah,
But
I'm
soul,
pretty-
SOLE, instead of
SOLE. Okay,
yeah, you would think it would be SULE or SOUL, but
I'm sure she's gonna come back in some way, some form or other.
I imagine like book like 8.
remember
What were
Talos.
I don't know if we covered what were your guys' favorite locations. There was a question up here.
Oh, I guess I don't know if it's quite Gadrobi Hills, but like basically everything outside of the two cities. Um I love the scenes in Kroop's dreams, Kroop, however you say it. I love his dreams. I love the scene where Tattletale incinerates herself and everything around her. I love Raced, the Jagoot tyrant fighting the dragons. Them looking for his tomb. I loved all of it. If it was outside the city, I was into it.
What about you, Colin?
I still think all the stuff in Darujistan, just because it felt to me like I really enjoyed the, I guess, politicking. There was so many plot threads. Obviously, the entire story was focused on Darujistan, but there were so many cool aspects of Darujistan. First of all, we've got the bridge burners that are just like, that we can get into them later, but I just love that this is a whole squad that knows the empire that they work for wants them dead. But they're just doing stuff anyways. Cool, sweet. They're just soldiers. Like, okay, what? They want us dead doesn't mean we're not going to do our job. We're going to go plant landmines everywhere and hope this works. And then like we have the nobles, and I think Erickson paints such a really, it's just such a cool view of like the noble people just all being gross and thinking that what they're doing matters and that they actually control the city, when in reality everybody that knows anything about anything knows it's actually like the Assassins Guild, and like the real players in the world reach out to the people in the Assassins Guild if they want something done. And then we just have like these nobles who think they're doing stuff, and everyone's like, okay, yeah, they're gonna do their thing, but like this is really what's going on. I don't know. I just really loved being in Darujistan. I like the other locations too, but there was just so much stuff happening there, and so many different players were coming there for different reasons. And
Mhm.
some of the people knew exactly what was going on. Like we obviously have like Rake and like who was the like leader of the assassin? Not Vorkan. Who was the other guy?
Oh,
Ocelot,
what?
the
Ocelot or Burrick,
Yeah.
the alchemist.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Baruch. Yeah, that guy. Like those are the guys that everyone's coming to because they're like, I know you guys really like, have your foot on the pedal and your hand on the steering wheel here. So like, for me, it was definitely Darujistan.
Yeah,
I
same.
do think I do think it all pays off at the end though, because there's all these different players. Like there's all this politicking going on. There's the bridge burners doing everything. Lauren and Tool, and like that all comes to a head in a very explosive way. Obviously, I think the only critique I'd really have for the book is I feel like the middle section just kind of like is very circular. There's a lot of moving around, and time. Erickson's kind of weaving these threads and then trying to untangle them for the end. But I do think it pays off ultimately.
Yeah. I mean, if this is the start, my gosh, like every other book should be 5 stars, right?
Right.
So and we did get some a little bit of hints for Dead House Gates. I think towards the end with Rallick going into one of them. Didn't he go into one of that house?
Yes.
And I guess it was Dead House or whatever it's called.
Ralph and Vorkan, they went into that. Yeah.
For me, I like a little. I liked a little bit of mix. I agree with Colin for the most part. I think Darostistan or per my dyslexic is kicking in were probably some of my favorites. But I also think there were some cool downtime scenes with in the hills. With particularly again, this goes back to how he pulls in side characters. There was a cool scene with Cole and Perrin where Cole is injured and Perrin is getting him up. They formed a bond like right there, and I thought that was just a really cool touch. And they were both working together to get back into the city, and I thought that was because up to then we just assumed Cole was always drunk or and kind of off to the side, and then just again like Fiddler, just giving these side characters just a lot of life, and Erickson just handles that really well by not overburdening us. We're already establishing all these other characters, so here's a little tidbit about this character, and here's a little tidbit about this one, and giving these guys a little bit of spotlight. And I thought that was really cool. And then, of course, Lauren and Tool were just a fun pair to watch together as well, too.
Yeah.
So
here's a take. Lauren is the most layered character in this book. That dinner scene with Dujek, Tattersail, and Taishrin was fantastic, where we got her backstory and Lauren came out of her adjunct role. Yeah, that was a nice moment for her, for sure. That was cool, interesting. I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan of Lauren. I thought she was kind of interesting, but her death didn't really affect me in any way.
Yeah, I very much feel similar. Like I think I could have cared for Lauren more if I saw her a bit more. Probably if I saw her be more of a badass, if I saw this more kind of like juxtaposition between her still ultimately being like a broken child deep down, and then like the cruel, cold woman that she's kind of become as an adjunct. I would like to see more of that. So if there's like a prequel novella about Lauren, I'd read it.
I kind of felt that way with Sari / Aspabar. I wish we had more of Sari. All we kept getting was, people don't want to be around her, and we weren't getting too many scenes with her. And maybe that was on purpose, to keep that mystery of her possession or whatever, and for her to break out of that and become this Astapor, and maybe I think, however, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her new name right, but yeah, that's I wish we got a little more. Same kind of like how we feel with Lauren. I wish we did get more on Lauren, and we didn't. But that's probably kind of where that knockoff on the half star for me would be.
I feel like we will probably get a lot more of Apsalar. She's probably coming up a lot in the later stories. I could be wrong, but maybe.
To answer your question, we need more monkey demons. There weren't enough scenes with the little monkey.
That was cool. Yeah.
Yes. There was so much going on that I could not really I didn't have much thought about the monkey, honestly. There's probably tons of stuff that went right over my head.
Yeah.
I thought the monkey was cool, just yeah.
There's all kinds of animals in this. I mean, there's crone. There's a big bird that looks like a dog in one scene.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
The hounds.
The hounds. We haven't even talked about the hounds yet.
We haven't even talked about the hounds.
The big evil doggos.
How about Hairlock?
Oh my god! I love Hairlock.
Oh man!
Absolutely. Like, what? We literally have a marionette losing his absolute mind in the chaos we're in, and just coming in and out of existence, and like killing a bird, going back in, like coming out, doing some crazy stuff, and then going back. It's like, what is going on here?
Honestly,
a prime example of the I latch onto toxic, horrible characters, because every scene with Hairlock, I was like, "Oh my god, I love this! I need more of this crazy puppet."
Yeah, he was the biggest comedic relief for me in the books. He was so funny, just picturing him doing all that stuff.
Absolutely,
it's at the same time. It's so funny how terrifying he is. It's comical to think of a marionette doing these things, but at the same time, it's like, oh shit's gonna go down, because Hairlock's here, kind of thing.
I absolutely love the scene early in the book when he kind of like runs into Tattersail's room and he's like, "Oh, by the way, there's a hound of chaos after me," and he just gets into a trunk and she's like,
and then he
"What am I supposed to do about it?" And he's like, "Fuck you, figure it out."
He just drops the lid. That was so funny.
This actually leads me into my answer for I think that's Dom. I'm not sure. Music Man, oh yeah. Fave duos or group. I loved following everything that had to do with Quick Ben and Kalam. Like, I feel like those dudes were just like operating kind of like Whiskey Jack and like the other bridge burners were just like not even concerned. Like these two dudes don't need to be told what to do. They've got more information. They've got their own like super secret, like really important mission, and they just get it done. Like they feel like they know each other so well. Like they feel like old, soldier friends that like don't have to say anything to each other. They just like know what the other person's gonna do, and they're not like concerned. They're not like worried that the other person's gonna let them down ever. And then they just keep saying like they keep talking about Hairlock. Like Quick Ben will just be like, I don't know what he's doing, but like he's definitely doing some stuff right now. I love following them.
No, 100% agree. One of my other favorite scenes of the book is when Quick Ben goes and like mentally converses with Shadow Throne. And it's revealed at the end that he used to be a priest or like a high priest in Shadow Throne's church. A great fucking scene. And Caleb was just great. Caleb, you could always just tell, was just like ready for violence. Like he wasn't like actively looking for it, but he was ready for it to go down.
Yeah, touching on the bridge burners. I don't know if you guys have read The Black Company, but that like the bridge burners very, very much more than anything reminded me of The Black Company. They're like super. They're dynamic.
Definitely an inspiration there. Yeah.
Yeah. Every time there was a bridge burner scene, we got Whiskey Jack or them. It just I couldn't stop thinking about The Black Company. So if you guys have read it or if you're planning on reading it, or just something to keep in mind.
I've been planning on reading it. I swear I read somewhere that Erickson said The Black Company was an inspiration for this.
Yeah.
So like it's not even like inferred, like he's confirmed that.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I got the first anthology or like the first omnibus of it, but I haven't read it yet, so I'll probably have to give it a read after Malazan.
They're not all perfect from my memory, but especially after you're coming off Malazan, Malazan does take that a step up. But I think I give Glenn Cook credit because he establishes this sort of. He's one of the earliest ones I remember with grimdark, and one of my first. And you definitely, like Usman says, you definitely feel that vibe in that, and you're going to notice that when you read the Bad Company. There's some really good books in that series, though, and I think you'll enjoy them.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really behind on comments. Let's Apstar's in Deadhouse. Okay, cool.
Good. I hope to see more of her.
There's a line somewhere, I think it's in like the last chapter of it, when Apsalar says that she wants to go home, and Crocus and I think Caleb are gonna take her there.
Yeah.
And he's like, we gotta go through 2 continents. I was like, there's 2 continents between here and there? Fuck.
Yeah.
Sequel.
Well, and not just sequel, but like I just feel like the actual
series
scope of the world just gets larger and larger.
I want to touch on this comment from Ben because Lorne irritated me a lot. Like I never really liked Lorne that much.
Same.
Till that scene that one of our other viewers mentioned.
With the dinner scene,
the dinner scene. After that scene, had so much more empathy for Lorne because it really like humanized her in a way. Like first of all, we understand like what it means to become adjunct. Like it's literally just you're an extension of the Empress. You are not even your own person anymore. And when we see that hint of it come out when she gets angry at Tattersail, and it's like everybody in the room knew what the title adjunct meant and had to like remind her. She like this person is not there anymore. Like you are not there anymore. And then she's like, oh yeah, I'm adjunct. And then she like turns back to this robotic, like, only taking and like filling commands. Like it that like made my heart sink for her a little bit. Even though I didn't like her, I was like, oh man, like now I feel bad for her, and I didn't want to feel bad for her.
I think that's a good point, Colin, you bring up, because I think it's funny how she's paired with somebody named Tool, and it's kind of that's what she is too. She is essentially just like you said, an extension of the Empress, and that's all she can be, and that's all she's learned to kind of accept of her life. And yeah, the dinner party scene definitely changed a little bit of that for me. And I wish we did get more of Lorne. I wanted to get to know her a little bit more.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't even view it like that. That's, her and Tool for sure. Where am I here?
This is going back to something Dan said way back, but yes, the Tool and Lorne scenes were consistently very, very funny because I think Tool and her are talking about futility.
Yeah, futility.
She's like, why don't you tell the Talano Master? And he's like, it'd be futile.
Yeah. That was, big fan of Tattersail. I was intrigued by Sora. Yep, for sure. Maniac.
Crazy.
Stephen King vibes. Interesting.
That's some Stephen. Yeah, I could almost see that. In a sense of, well, Stephen King has like a similar sense of humor, I think, to Hairlock, but also this kind of like just incomprehensible chaos to it. So I could see
Hairlock is Randall Flagg.
Not just Randall. He almost gives me the Dead Kid in Pet Sematary vibes. If you guys have ever read Pet Sematary, I don't remember the boy's name. I want to say Danny, but that's The Shining. Gage. He would just come back and say really fucked up things.
I'm unclear on whether or not they were aware of what was going to happen to Hairlock. I think because here's the thing, the whole thing I was thinking of was like if they knew, because everyone knows what the Chaos Warren can do. If they knew what they were subjecting Hairlock to, like they saved him, but they actually didn't. Like that was super cruel. They're like, we need someone that's literally going to just add more layers and more dimensions to this already like craziness, so that like we can create like and do our own little thing over here and not be like paid attention to that much. They were literally just subjecting a dude to like becoming insane because his body was gonna die anyways. Like, that's so messed up to me.
I'm not entirely sure they did know, because when Hairlock is fucking missing everything from the chest down, he tells Tattersail that like they're about to perform magics that haven't been done in like thousands of years. So I think they
Did
knew.
Hairlock choose to go into the Chaos Warren, or did Quickben and Kalam like nudge him to go to the Chaos Warren? I don't remember.
I was under the impression that Quick Ben and Calum were coming there already with the intent to do it. So I thought I think Hairlock, as I understood it, Hairlock knew what Tayshaun was up to when he planned on destroying the whole Mage Cabal, and was trying to find a way out of it.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot about Tayshaun, that piece of crap.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
he's only actually functioning in one scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's funny how just that one scene he sticks with you, kind of thing. Yeah.
But even Tayshaun, like, now that you bring that up, like, even Tayshaun, like, again, hated him. But when was it the Empress or was it Adjunct? Like, when the Adjunct got there and was like, I didn't want you to do this. Like, this is insane. And it all of a sudden seemed like he was like relieved that he like didn't have to make the decisions anymore. Like, I don't know, like it seemed like his directions were unclear, so he just assumed that like they wanted all of the mages, because again, like the Empress and the Adjunct, they know that the real power players in Darujistan and Pale, any of these cities, isn't really the nobles. It's the people that can wield magic and the Assassin's Guild and all them. I think Tayshaun just like assumed that by taking care of business, they meant like kill all the mages, but that just put everything into like absolute anarchy. And then like everyone was like, yo, what's going on? Now everyone's even more against the Empire because they think the Empire just like sent more people just to kill more. Like, I don't know. Like, I again got more empathy because I feel like he was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, kind of like Adjunct was.
I had the opposite response. I had absolutely no empathy for Tayshaun whatsoever, because and maybe that's just the way we interpreted the scenes differently. Because when I read it, I was under the impression that like Tayshaun was told, "Hey, you should like totally kill all the mages," and he was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll do that in the flashiest, most obvious fucking way possible, by literally just turning around and killing them during battle." So when Lauren got there, she was more of a, why the fuck did you do it like that? Like, we want you to kill everyone. We didn't want you to tell everyone else we were doing it, because now everyone thinks you did it. Tayshaun just had I felt like he was just a big oaf, and he was in power, not really because he was a good mage, but probably because he knew someone.
Yeah. Total 7 continents. Yep.
God, that's too big. That's too much.
That's, yeah. My company. Yeah.
I misspoke in my review then because I said there were 6. Oops.
It just gets bigger.
Sorry, guys.
Person versus Adjunct. Yeah. Yeah, Lauren and 2. I agree. I didn't think about that. That was a nice parallel.
Yeah, good job, Chris. Very thoughtful.
I guess we could kind of touch on that whole massively important. The thing I don't understand the most in this whole book is the Finnist. I don't really understand the Finnist.
That was another confusing section for me too.
The Finnist in the deck of cards, I don't really understand. The Warrens I was kind of getting an idea about, but like, so what? I guess Adjunct took and found the Finnist.
The way
was her goal to like just take it to Darujistan to bring the Jaghut tyrant to Darujistan to cause even more mayhem? Like, was that her goal? I don't understand like why that necessarily had to happen in that way.
Tool
because
says,
like if that's the case, then like the tyrant that's not necessarily a foolproof plan. Like, because they aren't in control of the tyrant. It's a freaking tyrant. So, like, what happens if the tyrant gets there to cause more chaos, and then the Empire can't control the tyrant? Then they don't get Darujistan. Like, I didn't get that.
The way
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go for it.
The way I understood Tool, when they're in that tomb or whatever, and she finds it, Tool says something along the lines of like, the tyrant can sense the finesse, and like he knows where it is, and he'll pursue it no matter what. So the plan was to take it and then put it in Darujistan, so he'll go there and wreak chaos. The way I understand, because like then she like put it in the ground, and that's when the tree thing grew out, right? Or is that something else?
The Azov house, yeah.
Yeah, the Azov house, yeah.
Because I guess the way I interpreted it was the tyrant would want that and want it near him because it was the only thing that could stop him.
I thought it was and wasn't it also to have like Rake battle him and kind of weaken themselves, or was that another character?
Well, because the ultimate goal was to have Animator Rake and the tyrant fight each other. And whoever killed each other, it didn't really matter to the Empire because it was going to be bad for Darujistan no matter what. Yeah. The reason the tyrant wanted to finesse, as I understood it, was he wanted to hold on to it because it was the only thing that could grow into the thing that could stop him. Because that's how the tyrant dies, right? Once it takes over, is it Mormont? Is that his name? Crocus's uncle. Once it takes over his body, the roots spring forward and like pull him into the ground.
Yeah, because he was the tyrant, right?
Tyrant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Soul. Yeah.
The climax is
not to pivot again quickly, but I guess this kind of brings me to like understanding the Teist Andy race. Like, wasn't there like a scene where Animander Rake was basically like, I've been trying to like find a way to get my people to like want to live. Like, they have no vigor for life because they really don't have like any stakes in this. There's no real reason for Rake to be like dragging the Tista Andy into this. They're literally floating above it all. They could just not have any parts in it. And he like chooses to like come down and intermingle in all of these like earthly fightings. What, like, why? Just to like save his people or give them like something to fight for? Is that his whole?
I think it's in one of his conversations with Baruch. He says they're not just aloof, but like they are like slowly dying off, and they've kind of resigned themselves to that fate. So I think Animander's reasoning is like, if we can get involved in mortal matters, like maybe we can find a way to save our race, or at the very least give ourselves a purpose other than waiting to die, which for Tis Andy is like tens of thousands of years.
Mm-hmm. I got to catch up on these comments. Let me see. One of Erickson's gift is getting us to empathize with just about everyone. Yeah, that's true. Oh wait, I was there already. Here. How does everyone feel about soft magic system and the Warrens?
I love the mystery. I'm not quite I get a vague idea of the Warrens and how each person can interact with a certain type of Warren, and not everybody interacts with one type of soft magic system. Each person kind of has their own little pool to adapt into, and I'm sure we're going to get more, and I like that he's kind of left a little bit of the mystery. Coming way back to the beginning of this chat, Caleb brought up was just coming off of reading Mistborn. I was also reading Mistborn, and the my hot take to that is, and when I do my wrap up, is it comes off as a manual when you read this book, like you're waiting for the quiz at the end of the book to take to make sure you know what everything's supposed to do. And I like this mystery. I think there's a reason, maybe not everybody. I mean, I'm sure there's resources you can look online, like Colin says, but if you're just reading the book without looking at these resources, you just have this. I think everybody would have a different interpretation of what the Warrens are, and I think that's cool.
As someone who is something of a Warhammer aficionado, I was pretty comfortable with the Warrens because it's essentially them tapping into some other parallel dimension and pulling all the crazy power through these Warrens. That's very 40k. I was into it and I felt comfortable with it. So
it felt to me like Erickson like nerfing his own world in a way, because like, I touched on it in my review, and I think obviously Usman did too. And there are some characters, and it kind of translates to like the Warrens too. There are characters that we just know are way more powerful than like I can even conceive right now. Like I feel like Quick Ben's one of them.
Yeah, Quick Ben.
Like he just his air that he walks around with just seems like he's so well respected by those that know who he actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's Warrens that are more well respected and more revered and more powerful than other Warrens. But like, I really like that just because you're a mage, it's almost like I don't know if they're born with the abilities to like use one Warren or not, or if they're just specifically trained to use certain Warrens and going into different ones would be dangerous for them, or like I don't really understand how it all works, but I get the general premise that they can't all use them, but some can, and some are super powerful. And I think that's really like just a cool twist to the world, like just like to compare it to like the Greenbone Saga, because I just recently read it. That was a very unique and cool magic system that simply revolved around the fact that like if you just had more jade, you had stronger powers. But that was different than this. Like just your level of magical ability didn't really matter because you can't access everything. You can't access all 6 skills like you can in Greenbone just because you have jade. Like this is like you get one or a couple, or I don't really know exactly how it works, but I think that was a really cool aspect to this whole mysterious magic system.
Yeah, and that part, like, that's the part where Quick Ben really solidified as like one of the top characters for me, is his interaction with Shadow Throne, and then the fact that he tapped into what was it, like 7 Warrens at once or something, right? That was that's when
Yeah.
you're like, okay, this guy is
Back
someone.
uber powerful,
Yeah.
I coming off of Miss More than reading this, like I'm not only a fan, but now a stan for soft magic systems. I really love when magic feels wild and chaotic and uncontrolled. And that's especially true here because you never really get the impression that mages actually know what's in the Warrens or actually know what's going to happen when they do stuff. And there's even a point when Perrin is traveling through a Warren with one of the claws, I forget his name. They make a remark about, he's like, there's these weird footprints here, and the claw's like, yeah, something lives in here. We don't know what it is, but I don't imagine we want to meet it. So I love that there's like this larger mystery to the Warrens that may or may not be revealed in later books. So I love that.
Yeah, chaos warden,
Well, this was Hairlock's deal. He requested to be saved this way. Anybody want to touch on that? I wasn't.
Yeah, I was under the impression that like that's what he wanted. Whether because I thought he knew Tayshion's plan and was just trying to find a way to survive it, so he took the deal. And then Hairlock also, he wasn't crazy beforehand, but he very much seemed like an asshole. He seemed like he would be arrogant enough to be like, yeah, I could totally take this deal. I can tap into the Warrens of Chaos and not turn into a fucking crazy puppet.
Yeah.
Because Tattersall even talks about that. Because she had her kind of lover that was disintegrated during the battle. And I felt like I could have sworn she made the remark where she kind of wished it was Hairlock that died and not him. She's like, if everyone survived, it had to be
even beforehand.
Just understood more about Vanessa. Oh man,
So
right.
It continues.
Sounds like that's going to be par for the course.
Yeah. So, chat, people who've read the books more. Everything I hear about, I'm confused about. They're like, yeah, that really comes together in book 7. What the fuck is it about book 7 that makes everything make sense? No spoilers. But
what book is book 7? Is that Bone Hunters?
Toll the Hounds.
Toll the Hounds.
Wait, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, Toll the Hounds. Toll the Hounds.
Okay. I don't know. Everything I hear about each of these books, it each has like its cool thing or whatever. I don't know. I think it should be pretty. We should get through them pretty swiftly. I don't know.
I must have them in wrong.
Isn't that the biggest one? Like I'm looking up here. I'm like,
oh, Reaper's Gale. Okay.
No, Bone Hunters is big. Bone Hunters is huge.
Gardens of the Moon, Reaper's Gale.
Oh my gosh. Toll the Hounds is book 8.
It took me all month to read Gardens of the Moon.
How big is Bone Hunters though? Bone Hunters, I think, is the biggest. I think, isn't it?
You might be right.
Okay, every book you know a little more. Good.
Let me see what my mass market paperbacks say.
Colin, how are you reading mass market paperbacks with these
books? It's a struggle.
Especially with the thick boys.
Like the glossary and everything in the back.
Big boys, yeah.
Reaper's Gale is 1264.
The beauty of Malazan is that Erickson introduces a proper noun. You get to know how it is used in the world, and then he explains it thousands of pages later. Okay.
Reaper's Gale is longer than Toll the Hounds.
Really?
Like 50 pages.
Do I have an abridged edition?
I'm actually trying to collect all the trade paperbacks. I have a lot of the mass market ones. It's hard to find the trade ones.
Look at Reaper's Gale. Look at Reaper's Gale, and then look at Bone Hunters.
Wow.
What? Is there like...
Do I have like an abridged edition of it?
I'm just reading it on my Kindle.
Somebody in the chat confirm for us.
Here's my overall hot take for it. Are you guys ready for this?
Go for it.
Go for
Brace
it.
yourselves.
I love Caleb's hot takes.
24 chapters was not enough. I would have much preferred every scene be a chapter and read 198 chapters than 24 chapters. Because something about my brain is like, I have to finish a chapter. Like when I go to read a chapter, I have to sit down and finish that chapter. So the scene breaks were very hard for me. I would rather it been Da Vinci Code style and just every scene is a chapter.
Yeah, that's fair.
I agree. I there's a couple times because I read when I'm in bed majority of the time, and there was a couple times I face planted in my book because the chapter kept going and I actually fell asleep. Not because it was in a boring chapter. It's because like you said, the chapter is just like pages and pages long. And there are breaks in those chapters, so I would have liked maybe that separation. But that's a structural thing. But
I think it's a psychology thing for me. I think because I
read
on my Kindle.
I'm the same way.
So I read on my Kindle and I open it. I was like, yeah, I'll read a chapter before bed, and then my Kindle's like, this chapter is going to take an hour and 5 minutes to read. And I'm like, oh my god.
Ben asked a question a really long time ago that I can't find. Oh, it was at 9:39, if that's helpful. Thoughts on the title. Most of the other titles are easier to connect to the plot or themes, and this is one to me is a bit of a poetic mystery. Now, I started Dead House Gates, and on full disclosure, I'm like 150 or 160 pages in Dead House Gates, and I cannot remember, but I felt like there was a poem or a character dialogue interaction that was very brief and kind of enigmatic that talked about Moonspawn, the Garden of the Moon.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I can't remember if that happened in Gardens of the Moon or if that happened in Deadhouse Gates, but I think that it has something to do with Moonspawn, obviously.
That's what I thought as well. Definitely something to do with Moonspawn.
That was my impression too.
Totally. I totally took it literally. I thought it was Simtal's garden, and it was a lot at night. So
That's amazing.
I'm
Oh,
so
that's
idiot.
interesting.
I'm such an idiot.
I mean, no, that's interesting.
No, I think it's okay, Chris, because I think there's layers to it. Because I could have sworn.
But now
there was
that
a
you
poem.
mentioned the poem, yeah, there was a mention of it.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't Moonspawn, it was just a normal moon.
Normal
Okay.
moon. Yeah, it's a blink and you miss it moment, and it's those moments you just have to kind of categorize because you'll miss it. And yeah, I mean, I was thinking that question too, and I was like, I just took it literally. You know, it's like there's a lot in this, you know, Simtel's garden, and it's at night. So,
Well, I think there's a lot of subtext, I guess, to that, because one, there's the poem that like literally references the Gardens of the Moon being about Moonspawn, but then also, you know, a lot of this book takes place at night. The finesse is literally planted in the ground and grows at night in Sintel's garden, so in Garden of the Moon. So I think there's a lot of layers to it. Yeah. So both of you are right.
I have a special request for Usman when we eventually get to the end of this series to compile a metal playlist that has songs that correspond to the titles of all these books, because the titles of every single book in this series are awesome. Like
so
they could
metal.
just be a metal album.
like, I can't wait to read Toll the Hounds, because that title just rocks to me. It's just like I hear the music playing when I hear Toll the Hounds.
The Crippled God.
And Reaper's Gale too. Yeah.
So hang on.
I mean, all of them.
Based off the titles.
Yeah.
Just based off the titles, Colin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that
that.
could be fun.
Please do that.
I mean, we've already established that black metal plays a big role in Gardens of the Moon. So, yeah.
Dang.
Let's see.
That's hilarious.
I can't believe I forgot that Animander Rake is also like able to just become a dragon.
Yeah.
I forgot that too.
I could never forget that.
How could you?
Well, I mean, the first time I forgot it. The second time I was like, what? When did this happen? I don't remember this.
House of Chains. Literally all of them.
House-
All of them have
Yeah,
great titles.
They are. Yeah.
Dead House
Yeah,
Gates.
titles.
What?
Look at this. Where things start to come together. Book 6. Even more book 7.
So yeah, so book 6, book 7 consistently. That is where it all comes
Yeah,
together.
right?
You just have
Which usually I would hate. just so you guys
6,500
know.
pages.
We'll get
if
there,
some-
guys. What? That'll be next year, won't it? When we hit those books.
In
All
almost
things
every
considered.
other scenario, if someone was like, "Yeah, you should read this series," it really comes together in book 7. I'd be like, "Fuck you! No, it doesn't. It doesn't go together at all."
Kill the Hounds. Okay.
The Hounds is the biggest workout. Okay.
Did you guys use any resources while or after you read this?
No, Ben, don't tell me that.
So I got the map on my phone of all 7 continents, I think. So that was a
Yeah.
reference point for me.
I had a map, and then the only other thing I used was the glossary included in the book. So
Okay, interesting.
The first time I went to read this book, I did what you did at the beginning, Colin, where I flipped back and forth constantly. But this time I just went into it raw. I didn't look at that glossary once.
I was the opposite. I was like all in. Like when Surov sent in our Discord that the DLC book club, like I like looked at their titles to see like what chapters they covered and what books they covered, and as soon as I read up to that point, like I would fall asleep like listening to them, and then when I finished the whole book, I went to that Google Docs and I reread through. Like
is that
it's
Colin,
a
is that
chapter
pinned?
after.
Is that pinned or anything?
It's not pinned, but it is in the Discord Gardens of the Moon thread. and
Okay.
it's
I
literally a
may.
chapter by chapter summary of everything. And my wife walked in yesterday. She's like, "Are you doing homework? We just finished summer semester." And I'm like, "No, but I'm reading about a book that I just finished." And she's like, "Okay." She just walked out.
I may, now that we're done with the book as a whole, I might look at that now and just
Yeah.
kind of see. Yeah.
That DLC book club is awesome. And Surov, I don't know if they just released it, but they just interviewed Erickson. Like, he's been in their comment section for a while, following their chats, and I think they just like released an interview with him, which is freaking so cool.
Absolartel's
Oh,
Crocus.
there you go.
Guardians of the Moon. Okay.
Cool.
We all missed it.
Apparently,
I definitely missed it. I know it. Colin got it. Colin remembered vaguely, but
The only reason it stuck out to me was because it referred to moons.
I
So
just
I
took
made
it way
the
too
title.
literally. And I should know better by now. I should know that Erickson's not literal.
And
I was
again,
thinking it might have something to do with moon spawn. Like later on, we'll get more context. I don't know, but yeah.
why would like Crocus of all people be the one receiving this information? Like,
Yeah.
it's gonna go in one of his ears and out the other.
God,
I was thinking, like, what's this crazy chick talking about? Although, I don't know, like, we need to learn more about Absolar. There's
Yeah.
I
something
hope
going
we
on.
get more. I hope we get
She's
more.
so
definitely.
torn inside, like between all the different stuff that's going on inside of her.
She
Yes.
hides it well, though. I feel like she was coming off pretty bright and, kind of. So I'll be curious to see if we get to play a little bit with her in her mind with that, because she did pick up some knowledge from being, in possession. So it'll be really cool and interesting.
Colin, I think you had a theory as to House of Chains, right? And judging by that, it does sound metal. House of Chains, right?
Yeah, I don't remember. Did I?
It's something to do with possibly something to do with Dragnipper, which I thought was interesting.
Oh yeah, because
But I
it's
don't-
all the people like dragging the chains. Like,
Yeah.
I hope we
I
just
don't
get to like spend a whole ton of time like in Dragnipur's like portal.
I
That'd be
could read a whole book.
That'd be
on
freaking
Dragnipper.
crazy. Yeah.
Well, how long has Animander Rake been alive?
He
They live-
has
they
a
live a
comment
long
where
time.
like Tist Andy lived for like 20,000 years. So
Yeah.
I mean,
So imagine the people
Yeah.
that he has drug
those souls.
into that warren or into that portal. Like, what? There's probably some like huge historical players in this world that are just down there dragging a wagon. Like, what?
Yeah.
that's actually one of my
It's gonna be
favorite. One of the moments that really made me laugh through my nose. Was when Perrin is in Dragnipur and that guy comes up and he's like, "Hey, how are you doing? You don't have any chains. What's up with that?" Perrin's like, "What's your name?" And he's like, "I don't fucking know. Why would I know that? I've been here for 100,000 years." And Perrin was like, "That was a good point. I feel like an idiot."
Those are like the moments that I was kind of referencing in my review where like once you get to know the characters and like understand Erickson's writing style, there's so many moments of humor that like would have gone over my head early on and probably did, because I just went into this thinking it was going to be 100% serious all the time. Super high stakes. Everything everyone does is like serious. No one's smiling, no one's laughing. And that's not the case, especially with like the bridge burners. Like those in that moment, like that you described with Perrin, is just hilarious in retrospect. It's literally just like you said, this dude's like, "I don't know my name. Like, why would I know that? That's crazy. I'm just down here doing this." And then the bridge burners have like such a fun dynamic. And then Chris, you touched on one thing that I did kind of want to bring back. It was a while ago, but because like, okay, Whiskey Jack is just heart of a soldier, like born to be a soldier kind of guy. And he's been knocked down a lot of pegs under this
He was
new
demoted.
rule, right?
Yeah. He was
like-
actually demoted too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like he literally was knocked down like multiple pegs in the army. And he's so serious and so much of a soldier, but then there was like a moment where somebody, I forget who, was explaining to him about like friendship and why these guys are together, and he was just like, oh yeah, like it felt like a moment where he like let down his guard, and he's like, you know what, I love these guys, like I'm gonna be a little bit less serious even though like our lives are at stake. But it felt so real, like it was like a spiritual awakening for like Whiskey Jack.
I have the quote here. Actually, I have it tabbed.
Yes.
It was it's Fiddler, and he says, "It's like this, Sergeant. We've seen a lot of friends die, right? And maybe we don't have to give the orders, or maybe we think it's easier for us. But I don't think so. You see, to us, these people were living, breathing. They were friends. When they die, it hurts. But you go around telling yourself that the only way to keep from going mad is just take all of that away from them, so you don't have to think about it. So you don't have to feel anything when they die. But damn, when you take away everyone else's humanity, you take away your own, and they drive you mad. And as sure as anything, it's that hurt we feel that makes us keep going, Sergeant. And maybe we're not getting anywhere, but at least we're not running away from anything."
Bingo. That's the exact part I was talking about.
You know,
No,
when
I
was
love
Fiddler,
that.
Cool.
you know,
And oh, sorry, were you gonna say something, Usman?
No.
I was gonna say Whiskey Jack. I wouldn't say is someone I'm like really heavily invested in yet, but he's someone I'm very curious about because like there are references where, like he is obviously working for the Malazan Empire. He's obviously done some very dark things that he's just kind of like holding inside, and I really want to see that unravel and see more about him. So I'm curious about Whiskey Jack. So, but I wouldn't say I'm like into him yet.
That was a cool moment because I felt like he was just saying like, okay, like look, the Emperor, the Empress, whoever's leading us just views us as expendable soldiers. Don't do that. You can't do that or you will lose yourself in this. That's for them to feel that way. Like our job is to care about our friends. Like we're the ones on the ground fighting. I'm glad we kind of went down this road because another thing that we haven't talked about yet that I'm kind of also unclear on is the bone phone and Dujek One Arm.
Another one of those
One
like
Arm a member of the Bridge Burners, or is that a separate squad?
think he's like
so
their
the way I
commander.
understand, he's a high fist, which I kind of interpreted as like a general. But that whole scene I kind of took as like they have been secretly communicating and planning on when they were gonna just abandon the Malazan Empire. Because they even references like all the bridge burners are like, what the fuck is this bone phone thing? Why is High Fist Dujek talking about overthrowing the Malazan Empire, and why is Whiskey Jack not freaking out about it?
Yeah.
So what? Dujek One Arm is up there with like the Adjunct and the Empress, and he's like in the conference rooms with them, and they don't know that he's bone phoning with Whiskey Jack about separate issues.
He says there's a scene with them in the beginning where it's Dujek and Whiskey Jack and I think Tattersail, and they all kind of agree, yeah, Tayshiren's a piece of shit and tried to get us all killed. We should do something about that.
Okay. Did Whiskey Jack used to be a sergeant?
He was demoted to sergeant.
That's what he's demoted to.
Yeah,
He's demoted.
I think he is a sergeant. That's his demoted.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or no, where was Whiskey Jack? Was he like where Dujek One Arm is now? And did they like flip or something?
I don't remember, but he was pretty far up, I think.
Yeah.
He was higher than captain. Or
I
was
think
he
was
captain?
cool.
He was a captain in the prologue.
Okay. Yeah, when he was talking to Perrin.
He was commander. Yeah. Commander to sergeant.
Interview with Erickson. Okay. So after Deadhouse Gates. I'll watch that.
Their Gardens of the Moon chats were a lot of fun too.
Yeah, I'm excited to finally check them out.
Yeah, that's actually why I asked you guys, because one of them I forget the man's name. He did what I did and kind of like was doing a bunch of research after the parts that he read, and then the chick that's on the show, he was just like, "I'm just going. I'm just reading." So we have like a similar, I guess, dichotomy there because I was like, I need to know, like, I want to know what's going on. Like, I just wanted to keep living in this world.
Yeah.
I have like 5 Malazan Gardens of the Moon chats in my save later right now. I think Philip Chase and A Critical Dragon, I think, had one that I want to listen to, and then there's actually ones with Steven Erickson I want to listen to that are, but yeah, I
Yeah.
have like 5 that I can finally watch now because I really want to go into this as blind as possible, really get that experience.
Yeah, for me, but because I did kind of do it both ways. The second way I read it was the more enjoyable for me. Of just I'm just going to accept everything that's thrown at me. And then when when Quick Ben is like, yes, I used these 7 warns in this battle, I was like, wow, that's a lot of words.
When you want detail. Okay.
I also think something I didn't like really get into when I reviewed it was I think the fact that Erickson was a practicing anthropologist it added a very different flavor to this. I mean, yes, fantasy as a genre is known for like creating different peoples and races and cultures, but like I don't know, Erickson was throwing some like crazy stuff in there that like I feel like only an anthropologist would even think of, like about histories and like how civilizations build and empires come to be and what happens in the fallout of cities. Like I feel like he like translated knowledge he had of studying like fallen cities and fallen peoples into like real life in the moment. This is what it probably looked like when this like Pale was overtaken, or like I just thought it was a really unique aspect of this reading experience.
No, I totally agree. Especially considering that he doesn't do exposition. He doesn't spend a lot of time like explaining these things, but the information he does present feels like it has such a depth to it, and I think that's largely because of his anthropology background. And I think what I really love about this book is just the overall theme of people just being caught up in larger machinations, whether they're like pawns for gods or pawns of empire or just stuck in the circumstances of their birth. Like I feel like everyone in some way or another is just fighting against forces that are impossibly larger than they are.
Yeah, I I think I mentioned it to Colin at least on the writing standpoint. I remember reading Gardens in the Rune the first time, over a decade ago. And just that one book was sort of an inspiration to me. I studied archaeology, and just to have this aspect of building these cultures and presenting it in an entertaining way is just very appealing to me. And, of course, I don't think I'll ever achieve what he can achieve here, but just having that inspiration definitely is amazing, and I love this aspect of anthropology and archaeology, but presented in an entertaining way without info dumping on you.
This is interesting. Yeah, I had no clue if I was supposed to root for the Malazans through this book. That's just strange. Yeah, yeah. I didn't think I wasn't like really rooting for them. It's strange because I didn't think I wasn't rooting for them, and then I didn't think like Rake and the Tistandi were bad or like in any way like that, even though it may have kind of been presented like that. So it's weird.
Yeah, it's hard to say there's any like good or bad guys. I can't even say it's very A Song of Ice and Fire-esque in the sense of I don't feel like there was like really anyone in particular I was rooting for. There were people I definitely didn't want to win, but that doesn't mean I wanted the people they were against to win either.
Yeah.
Except every scene Animander Rake is in. I'm like, I don't know if you're evil or not, but you're cool as fuck.
Yeah, man. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people that we follow that are associated with the Empire that I liked to follow. And like I had to like I was thinking like I literally was thinking about this like when I was doing my review. I was like, man, like inherently what is going on with the Empire is just horrible. It's literally conquesting people and wiping out cultures and peoples all around the world. Like that is their goal. But like Caleb said, it's literally what we're getting is just such an intimate view of all of these different individual people caught up in the machine and having to do things that maybe they don't agree with, but they don't have another option. Like there's so many layers. It's like even with like Tayshren, like it's just people doing stuff because they have to. And yes, there's like just bad people everywhere.
And
But like
there's like a survival instinct with everybody.
yes,
And people are just trying to do their best to survive. Some are going out the wrong way. Some of them are going, to try to hurt as least amount of people as possible, just in order for their own survival, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just goes back to just that love of just this epic, and this is what I would consider epic fantasy to me. All of these people, just in a global standpoint, coming together to try to just survive. These few people that are just wrecking their lives.
Yeah, because I think a great example of that is Turban Orr, who I think we can all agree was a piece of shit. But even he had a point because he was trying to convince the council to just give up and just let the Malazan Empire take over. His justification being, well, not getting steamrolled by them is a better alternative. Because they're gonna win either way. The question is, do we want Darujistan to be rubble when they do? So I think the book is very interesting because like there's a lot of great philosophy and like there's a lot of like arguments for everyone, and no one is entirely wrong ever.
Yeah, very gray. Yeah.
That being said, I do love the scene when Rallick kills Turban Orr.
Yeah.
It was very interesting, the fight scenes, because, well, obviously a couple of them involved Rake, who just wasted people instantly. Like, demons were just obliterated in a second. Like when that demon got released, everyone there was just like, is that one of Tayshren's, like, Empire demons? Like, that thing's gonna wreak havoc all over everything. And literally, like a minute later, just gone. And Rake is just like, all right.
That bit of dialogue there, just it's one of the things that really puts Rake up there because when you said that demon got released and everybody's like, it's like a huge thing, and then you see Rake come down and then the demon's like, oh, you're sending me to my death. And you're just like, wow, okay.
Yeah, or I love the build up to Rake fighting the dogs or the hounds. Because like the first time you see the hounds, they just massacre a town and like a whole platoon of soldiers. Every time a dog shows up, there's like a dozen people dead. Perrin he and Terrace have to fight just to wound one to end it off. And Animator Rake just comes in and kills two of them, like right off the bat.
Yeah, the hounds are interesting because we got some decent amount of characterization for each of the hounds, so it seems like they're gonna play a big role coming up. And I mean, I guess Toll the Hounds, that kind of name.
I feel like they're like in the cover of like 5 of the books.
Yeah. Like the Dead House Gates, even they're in the dust storm.
Yeah, they're in the sandstorm.
Yeah. I think that's pretty cool and interesting.
Chris, I was literally waiting to bring this up. Somehow Erickson got me to empathize with this demon. Like, that was a sad moment.
Yeah.
It's like the demon like turns to Quick Ben and is just like, you know what you're doing, don't you? And he's like, yes. And the demon's just like, I'm gonna die doing this, aren't I? And Quick Ben's just like, yes.
Like, well, I'll buy you some time.
I think it's when Animator Rake is he talking to Baruch? and marrying the Rake is basically saying, I want to kill these people. And Baruch is like, how about I kill them and then I just tell you they died so they don't have to suffer the fate that you're planning for them.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Rake just laughs. He's like, whatever.
yeah, the sword, yeah.
Um,
Wow, that's okay.
God, he's just so cool.
Look at this. The philosophy hasn't even started yet.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Yikes.
fun.
I feel like it,
The huge gap of events. Okay. I haven't read Dune, but sounds interesting.
I actually watched the part of like half an hour of AP and Philip's discussion on Gardens of the Moon, and AP had a very interesting theory as to why this happened the way that it did, and like I don't know if you guys want me to tell you because we've already. I mean, I don't know if you're gonna watch that video, but AP has obviously got a very unique viewpoint of this book. I mean, he's worked so closely with Erickson, and he pointed out that after this break in the chronological narrative, where we see the aftermath of something first, everything after that is chronologically in order. So, except for that part, was almost used as a narrative device to like represent the absolute chaos that happened when that much magic like collided, that it like threw the like timeline of events in the narrative into disarray. Also, he's like, I don't know for sure if that's like what Erickson was intending, but like when he said that, I was like, what?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
that is very interesting, actually.
Pearl is being left to eternal torment in Dragonapur. So here's a question: How are we feeling about the rest of the series? We're on track to finish off everything.
I'm picking up.
Oh,
Go ahead, Kevin.
I was gonna say I'm picking up Dead House Gates on Kindle on Friday, so I haven't started it yet, but I will be. Colin will probably be done with it by then.
Dead House is
I'll be on vacation. I hope to read a lot.
these books.
Dead
take
House
time.
Gates will be my second half of the month.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, for me.
And they take time, like to digest all this stuff.
And I think we did mention in the comments when we start Memories of Ice, we were going to make that into a 2-month read.
Yeah,
Was everybody cool? Was everybody
Yeah.
cool with Memories of Ice being a 2-month read?
That sounds good. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, my plan is for every.
I was gonna say I'm 100% on board for the rest of the series.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't foresee any event or like even like me not feeling the hottest about like a part of the story to like not want to discontinue this.
Yeah, I'm definitely sold on reading the rest of it.
Definitely.
I don't plan on reading any other book physically this month. Everything else will be audiobooks, so I can just focus on Dead House Gates. So
Nice.
I will be fighting my ADHD the whole time. So
Yeah, it's funny because I've had to, man, I kind of went crazy with the buddy reads in the past, a bit earlier on, and I've had to actually like cancel things. I'm like, okay, I gotta focus on the last.
It was a good thing for me and Caleb anyway, that we both decided to put Mistborn on hold. Because
yeah, me and Chris were both like, we are going to read the Wall of Ascension eventually.
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chris, that's a good point to bring up. I really thought I was a good reader until I started reading all these big fantasy books. I think Gardens of the Moon is equivalent to like 3 of the horror books I would usually read.
Wow.
Because I was like, yeah, I'd be like, yeah, I read 3 or 4 books a month, and now I'm down to like 1.5.
Not word count though.
No, not word count. Word count's probably higher than ever, but
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good. And one last question: Is anybody interested at all in the Esselmont books? How do you guys feel about that? Would you be adding that, or is not a priority.
I would definitely be for it. I think I heard they're not quite up to Ericsson's, but I heard they are still interested for the most part. I heard some were good. I would definitely be up for it. I was even going to ask, are we're supposed to read all of Malazan first, right? Or
So I've
are
heard
there?
it kind of mixed. I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, well, Knight of Knives can fit it between books 5 and 6, and then Return of the Crimson Guard between like 8 or 9 or something like that." And then, but a lot of people also say just read the main 10 first. So I don't know. I was gonna
I
kind
would
of play
prefer
it by ear.
chronologically, like
Yeah.
as in date wise, like read the Malazan books first.
Yeah, no, everybody agrees publication order, so
Yeah.
that would be where they fit in there. But I was just gonna like I was interested in them, so I'm thinking I'm just gonna play it as it goes along and see, if I feel like fitting them in there or if I'll just do want to reread, which I feel like is inevitable for a series like this.
Yeah. I'm down either way. So I'm fine just reading the main 10, and then if we want to go back and read the others or add on, because I think there's like 2 other trilogies in the Malazan universe, right? We can tie those in afterwards. I'm down for whatever. I'm all bought in.
Yeah, I feel like we can kind of figure it out as we go.
I
But
feel
I'm-
like maybe because like Night, the Esselmont books are a bit short. Like the one between 4 and 5 is like a novella, right?
Yeah, it's shorter. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, that might be a good palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Malazan Book of the Fallen first, Esselmont novels, Empire next. They're very connected, but they're also their own series. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, good to know. Just play it by ear, I guess.
yeah, we
Basically what
completely
that was.
forgot to talk about Caladan Brood. I just remembered.
Oh
that.
my god, Kaladin Brood, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Like
slipped your mind.
you said, Return of the Crimson Guard. Isn't that like Caladan Brood's shtick, or am I wrong in that?
It's
Yeah,
well,
he's like
they work with him, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
he's like the leader of the Crimson Guard, right? Because like we only see like 2 of the Crimson Guard people at the end of the book.
Book. Yeah.
They're off doing like their own fucking shit in the South, if I remember correctly. And then there's a whole other villain that's introduced towards the end of the book, like the Panyan Seer,
Yeah.
trying to start a holy war.
I think that's what we get introduced in Dead Houses, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah.
They make the Panyan Seer seem like the big baddie, kind of.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, Caladan Brood was just like another sweet name. Like,
I know.
Yeah.
All these fucking
Oh, yeah.
amazing names.
Okay. Well,
okay,
Great House Cleanser with ties.
there you go.
Okay, fair enough.
All
And
right.
that's between books 4 and 5, right? Or 5 and 6.
5 and 6. Yeah.
So, yeah, when we get to that, we can discuss that for sure.
got a long way to go.
Yeah, Kaladin Brood for sure. He's the other one. Not as cool as Rake so far,
Right.
but him and the Crimson Guard seem interesting as well.
Dang. But yeah, that was. I feel like we could just continue to like think of things that we missed.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, man.
there's so
Yeah.
much to the book, right?
Right.
Mhm.
We haven't even talked about Raced fucking fist fighting 5 dragons.
Oh my god!
Oh yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Literally just going fucking Super Saiyan, just yelling, and the fucking mountains crack all around him.
And all the crows. The crows are
And the
just like
crows. Yeah.
the crows are just like, whoa, this is going on over here. I got to go tell Baruch, and then like, whoa, this is going on over here. I got to go tell Animander Rake. Like, what's their deal? Who are they? Like,
Yeah,
Also
that
love-
seems interesting with Crone.
Grown.
How she basically answers to Rake, but then it's also kind of separate that she answers to Brood. So it's like 2 different kind of loyalties, not really the same. It's weird.
oh, Ravens. I think I got it confused because the name is Crone, right?
Yeah.
Grown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ravens.
Yeah. Like old lady crone. Yeah. Great ravens. Yeah.
Crows are not very intimidating. Ravens a little bit more.
So
I also love like when they're at the party, and I think it's Baruch and the other wizard lady, Oh, I think my
Oh.
camera died.
Oh.
It's okay. I'll chat for a second. But
There you are.
we're on my webcam, I think. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But what was I saying? So Rake is at the party, and like there's like the storm going on, and everyone's like, "Oh, it looks like a bad storm," and then the wizards are like, "So the Jugu tyrant is out. Are you worried about the Endermare into Rake?" And he's like, "Nah, I'll deal with it when it gets here."
Yeah, there was that moment where somebody was just like, I don't think we have days. I think we have hours until this is gonna happen. I forget who said it.
And
But they're, like,
Rake is straight up
coming.
like, "I don't think that's the biggest threat right now.
Yeah.
Rick is just too cool for school.
He's just too cool, dude." I swear, every scene he was in, I felt like it was a teenage girl. I was just like,
You're just like fawning over this guy.
He's so
I
cute.
want Usman to just release Animander Rake like stand video where you just let it all loose and you just talk about how much you actually love Animander Rake.
Sort of like how somebody has like an entrance song and then you just play it anytime and her.
No holds barred. I just want to hear Usman talk only about Animander Rake for like 15 minutes.
Bro crush.
yeah. Then we get, I was like, Usman, like, I don't think you love Animander Rake. We think you're in love with Animander Rake.
Oh,
He's
man.
just so cool.
Talking about Rallick and Murillo.
I do love Rallick. He kills Turban Orr in a very cool way, even when he's injured. Because we touched on it a little bit, but the fucking assassin battle with Quick Ben and Calum and Rallick and the Tistandi and
Mhm.
Yeah, well, they so like the assassins didn't know. That was a major plot line actually that we just completely missed. Like, so
Mhm.
who was trying to strike a bargain with the Assassins Guild?
the Bridge Burners.
The Bridge Burners were okay. And then that whole fight ensues, and then they realize that the Tistandi are there also. Wasn't that like a big moment of confusion that like they didn't know that the Tistandi were going to be there too, or am I wrong in that?
Yeah, because there's Quick Ben and Calum. They are following Rallick and Murillo, I think. And they're like, we're obviously going into a trap, but we'll be prepared. And then they get ambushed by the Tistandi, which they were not prepared for. So
Rallick's the one that has like the Odoteran dust on him.
Yeah.
Is that him? That's a whole thing too.
Yeah.
Because Baruch was just like, don't put this on your skin. And he's like, I'm going to put this all over my skin.
And good thing he did.
He's like, it can't be that
And then
bad.
he gets like shot with the arrow and it just like he's like, oh, I can just do stuff now. I don't care what's going to happen to me. They said it might be bad, but I'm not getting shot.
I loved anytime we had those like rooftop assassin scenes because it just was a credit again to Erickson being able to, because he would switch between the different points of views of the different characters that were involved in those scenes and just be able to switch it off, in one chapter. Yeah, but you were able to still follow through a little bit, follow along with that pretty well. I love the switch offs. So we didn't just get one point of view from those rooftop assassin scenes. We got everybody's point of view of that whole scene. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Your fave characters will rank differently as you read. Okay. Maybe by the next few books, I'll be so over Rake. I don't know.
I'm over you.
I don't see how. It'll happen. I was talking to someone in a Discord, and I wasn't sure they were trying to dissuade me, but I said Endermane Rake with the goat, and they were like, "Are you sure about that? Are you sure?"
Usman's just gonna be like, babe, I swear Animander Rake was just a phase.
I have a feeling. Have you guys seen the meme of the British guy going, "He was the best guy around"? What about the people he murdered? What murders? That's gonna be me with Animator Rake.
Oh, man.
Oh my god.
Did we miss anything else? I'm trying to think.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
chat,
we
help us
did.
out. What are we talking
Chat.
about?
Probably.
Chat, what are we missing? We touched on the monkey, which none of us know anything about.
Yeah.
I like
Did
the
we? I guess big spoiler. Did we? Anybody figure out Krupe was the eel?
By the end.
Yeah.
I am like way too dumb to follow plot threads like that.
Yeah, I
Uh,
was. Yeah, I
I'm the
mean, Krupp
perfect
was.
mystery reader because I don't think ahead at all, and I don't actively try to piece anything together. I just let the book tell me.
It was.
Yeah.
It was near the end. I just because he was always sort of like there, and there was a. I think there was a scene I read where it was. We were talking about Krupe, and then he Erickson had one of his little breaks, and then went right into the eel, and I think that was kind of when I was like, wait a minute, I think we're in the same scene, kind of thing, kind of. So I
Yeah,
think
I
that's when I
didn't.
got it. But I'm the same way, Callum. I can't think like that.
Who was speaking of the eel, who was Circle Breaker?
I think that was the whole point. Was like you didn't know who he was. I hope we find out more in like Deadhouse Gates or whatever book he shows up in.
I don't know.
It definitely doesn't feel like the end of his story.
So we're not supposed to know who the Circle Breaker is.
I don't think we're not supposed to know who he actually is.
Actually, is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that was going to be my follow up. I was like, if you guys knew who, because I totally.
Not a clue. And with the Krupp and the eel thing, I think I didn't see it, but as soon as it happened, I'm like, that makes complete sense. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, here we go. I forgot this. What about gender equality in the book? That was
when you realize the context that it came out in 1992, right?
I think it was 99. Regardless,
before 2000, it is a very progressive book for the time. I mean,
1999.
there's women in not subjugated roles. They're very powerful. They're proactive. Same thing with like there's a lot of diversity in the book as well. I thought gender equality was great. And then I think it was someone in chat mentioned Tattersail is plus sized and attractive. That's still a problem today in fiction, where fatness is poorly perceived.
thinking about it. That's pretty progressive for the time, and I like how it was done here. It was done really well. It wasn't like on the nose or anything. It was,
Yeah, nobody was like put down because they were a girl. Nobody said, like Empress Lacine, for instance, good example. I mean, nobody like said, there's a girl on the throne, kind of thing. That never comes up. It's just, she's just there. And same with the soldiers. It was always men and female, men and female fighters equally fighting together.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool to see that. That was another refreshing thing to break away from that whole any sort of like degradement of especially female characters.
Yeah, I think,
and they were just there. They were just, people. Everybody was a person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This could again play back into, Erickson's profession of being an anthropologist, because the way that he wrote the book and almost all of the cultures, it never even had to be said. Nothing about gender role, gender equality was ever even mentioned out of the side of someone's neck. Like you said, Chris, and it was like no one was ever surprised that there was an empress. No one was ever surprised that Tattersail was this powerful girl. Like it was just a thing that was unsaid. People were just people. Like there was definitely oppressed people, but it wasn't about gender necessarily.
Yeah.
Like it never even crossed my mind.
There's a line that Tattersail has that I absolutely love because she just owns everything about herself. I think she's telling someone to get Perrin for her, and she says something along the lines of like, "Tell him what'd she say? The fat witch wants him." I thought that was funny, and yeah,
I think if there was anything close to like a toxic femininity, it was going to be Sintal, the councilwoman who
I was just thinking
uses her
that too.
body, who uses her body to influence the councilman. And I think that was the only time. But even that, I mean, that's her way of surviving. I mean, again, it's a game of this book is about all these people trying to survive, and she is using what she can to survive. You know, and maybe that was maybe if there was any sort of, toxic femininity in that, it would have been her. But we didn't like her. So
Yeah, it's nice when it's done without like bringing so much attention to it or putting it on a
Right.
pedestal or anything like that. So I like that.
yeah, it was great.
Erickson really has a talent for like showing the ugliness of humanity, and I think it was even talked about with the Jaghut tyrant. Like, wasn't there a scene where they were? I don't know if it was probably Lorne and Tool talking about like what happened with the tyrant, like why he wasn't like it was like, and I think the Tool said something along the lines of like he like was so powerful, but like became like human in a way, was like acting human, but was like so much better at acting human and like running things, but in a horrible way that like it made him tyrannical. I don't know. There was some moment of like Erickson kind of like making a not on your nose comment about like just the ugliness of like what the human race is capable of.
Yeah, I think I remember what you're talking about, Colin, because he's talking about how the Jagu are like typically like a non-violent, peaceful people, and that's what made the tyrants so dangerous. Is like because they were aggressive and because they did want power, it was really easy for them to do it. And when he's describing the difference between like a tyrant to like a different Jagu, Lauren is kind of like, that's just people all the time.
Yeah.
On your face, yeah.
It's just normal. Yes, until Malazan. Power play. Yeah, she was very power hungry. Definitely.
But I think that's
Cool.
what's the kind of interesting thing about it is like there's the people who are just trying to survive under power in the book, and then like the few people who are trying to like grab it or take control of it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like every storyline is about a relationship to power. So I also love because Perrin is our everyman because like basically everyone is telling him do not get noticed. Like if you have some ambitions to be some special guy, don't fucking do that if you want to stay alive.
Yeah, that was in the prologue, wasn't it? Wasn't that Whiskey Jack?
Yeah, Whiskey Jack says that, and like multiple people tell him that throughout the book.
Because he was like, I want to be a soldier. And Whiskey Jack's like, no, you don't.
Final thing, do you guys think we've seen the last of Talk, the younger, when he got thrown in the portal?
I really
doesn't seem
hope
like
not, because I felt like there was so much with Talk that we haven't tapped into yet.
Yeah.
And he was just
We
kind
get
of
a lot of
introduced.
and we get a lot of intro verses in the chapters, and if you read them, they're like from Talk the younger. And
I was questioning his, I guess, death a little bit. Doesn't seem like it.
I feel like we haven't seen the last of them. That's just me. We'll see.
Rest it out. Jagged's help. Okay.
So that makes sense as to why Tool is so cool with like, just he's like, because Lauren, it's almost like Lauren can't understand the selflessness of Tool. Once Tool explains to her like what he's doing, and she's like, "Why are you doing this?" And he's like, "Well, because I'm like the last of my, not line, maybe line, but what happens?
He's clanless.
He's clanless.
Yeah.
That's it. And so like what happens is like whoever releases this gives all the power of their clan to the tyrant, and if I do that, it's just me." And Lorne like can't understand why he would do that, because it's such a human thing to like not understand doing something literally just out of the goodness of your heart for your like overall race.
Mm-hmm.
That was so cool.
Look at this. Yep. See. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tools of 2 less. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Is that it?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I didn't know if we were wrapping up or not.
Yeah. I was gonna say. So, closing thoughts. What are we? What are we looking forward to? I guess, or predicting
Everything.
everything.
Yeah, in a weird way, I feel like we had barely even begun. I'm like, I don't even feel like I have a full landscape of, or a full view of like the political landscape.
Yeah.
It's still not entirely clear to me who Caladan Brood is and how he relates to Animander or what he's actually trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
We literally get introduced to the Panyan Seer like 2 chapters before the fucking book ends.
And yeah.
It's funny how so much stuff happened, but it's just feels like an introduction still.
Mm-hmm.
There were there was like 2 other introductions I think that showed up at that gate like right at the end of the book, and you're like, what the shit, and so you just know what's coming up next. I'd be curious to see who carries over to Gatehouse. Or Deadhouse. I mean, I understand that there are like a whole bunch of brand new characters. Not everybody is included in this book from the first book. So, yeah, we'll see.
My understanding is that very few of the perspectives we've seen thus
Yeah.
far are actually seen in Deadhouse. We have to wait until Memories of Ice.
That's what I heard too. Yeah.
There are a few. I can already tell you that.
But I'm excited to start Deadhouse Gates. I'm excited to keep going. But it's hard to say that I do. I feel like I'm just beginning. I feel like I read like the first part of the first book.
Yeah.
Yeah, we read literally book 1 of Stephen Erickson book 1.
This is a 650-page prologue.
Basically.
Yes.
Pretty much. Yeah.
It's very much how I felt reading The Eye of the World, where I was like, fuck, I feel like I just read like the first part.
Yeah.
I feel like
similar.
the overall arc of the series will feel a bit more natural to me because like when I read Wheel of Time, when I gave up on Wheel of Time after I read The Dragon Reborn, once I got to the end of Dragon Reborn, I was like, this is the end of the first book. I don't necessarily get the vibe that this series will have that feeling of like there's like sections the series that are whole stories. So
Plus, for you and me, Caleb, this is going to be new for us now because we did reread Gardens of the Moon. That was a reread. Granted, I didn't remember a lot, but yeah, now this is going to be all fresh and new.
Yeah, this is all new territory now, baby.
And hopefully we get Robert back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah,
Robbie
that'd be
even in the chat?
No,
he said he wasn't quite. He said he wasn't quite finished. So hopefully we'll be able to catch up with Deadhouse.
Yeah. Hopefully. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to it, and I think we'll wrap things up here. If we're all good.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Like Gardens of the Moon, it only gets better. Yep.
That's
Looking
what
forward to
everyone's
it.
telling me.
Good to hear.
Thank you,
Book
Chad.
Book
Chad,
7, right? Book 7.
Yeah.
Like, thank you everybody that showed up in the chat. Honestly,
Yeah. Thank you all
so
for
much.
showing
And showing up in our Discord too. We appreciate all the comments we've been seeing in our Discord as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I should probably link that, I guess, in the video description later. But yeah, thank you everybody for showing up, and this was a fun chat. I'm excited to continue, and we'll see you all later.
Yep.
Good night, guys.
Later.
See you guys.